It's March 1972 in El Paso, Texas. Not even 5 in the morning, and already all hell's breaking loose in the million-dollar home of America's most recognizable private eye, J.J. Arms. In the basement of his mansion fortress, J.J. is in the middle of a gunfight. With his revolver gripped tight, he dives to the right as another assailant looms from the shadows. As he rolls, he fires off a round. Boom! Headshot. Target down. That makes 3 he's hit so far, and they just keep coming, one after the other, these unknown attackers. Sweat trickles down his back. His breathing gets heavier as he's forced to duck, dive, and roll out of harm's way. To his left, another figure rushes up. Jay spins and squares up. He shoots. Blam! Straight to the heart. Another perfect hit. There's no time for self-congratulation. This battle's not over, not by a long stretch. He scurries across the open floor, head ducked low, and reaches the place he stashed his shotgun. Dropping the revolver, he grabs the shotgun and spins to face the next 2 targets already behind him. Blam! The shotgun blast rips through the first and clips the second. JJ rolls over a low barrier, leveling himself to fire off another lethal round straight into the sternum of a guy who's just popped up from behind the wall. How many more attackers are hiding in the shadows? The acrid stench of gunpowder burns his lungs and eyes. His muscles ache, but this is his home, his manor. His wife's upstairs, for God's sake. He won't give up until he's taken them all down. Sensing the movement behind him, Jay swaps the shotgun left and raises his right arm. Time slows. He narrows his eyes, breathes deep, focuses on the fast-approaching target, and flexes a small muscle in his right bicep. Bang! His secret weapon fires perfectly. The target is hit, straight through the forehead. Smoke whispers from the barrel of the small magnum concealed in his forearm. Yeah, you heard me right. Concealed in his forearm. Right there in the flesh and bone. I know, but bear with me. I'll explain in a moment. Let's get back to the gunfight in the basement. Silence falls. An awful, tense beat. J.J. Arms stands ready, steadying his breath, waiting for another attack. But nothing comes. The gunfight is over. His assailants are all down. Phew. J.J. straightens up and dusts himself off. He's done okay, even if he does say so himself. But damn, these target practice sessions get harder every day. Just think, as the randomized spring-loaded mannequins are lowered once more, juddering back into place, ready for tomorrow's session, J.J. Arms carefully replaces his weapons. This intense gunfight is a training routine he goes through every morning in the soundproof basement of his El Paso home, while his wife slumbers peacefully above. And he makes sure to make it as realistic and lifelike as possible. Practice makes perfect, you know. I mean, it's hard enough being a crack shot out in the field, but try it with hooks for hands. Yeah, you heard me. J.J. Arms has no hands. He lost them when he was just 11. An older boy from his neighborhood had found some railroad torpedoes and told Jay to bang them together. Well, he did, and the dynamite blew his hands off at the wrist. But don't for a moment see this as some kind of disability. J.J. Arms can do more with his hooks than most of us can do with our hands. A fact you'll learn for yourself over the next 45 minutes or so. I mean, just ask those dummies back in the shooting gallery. And like I said before, they're not just hooks. Yeah, these claw pincers are a physical part of his body. They're connected directly to the muscles and sinews of his arms and controlled as precisely as the average man can move his fingers. By thought, instinct, and trained response. And he hasn't stopped at the hooks. Like I mentioned back in the shooting range, he also had a small Magnum 22 built into the right hook, which is also controlled by his mind and his muscles. He'll be the first to assure you he can't fire an error. It's mind over matter, he claims, which makes it a pretty formidable secret weapon. Anyway, we continue. With his traditional morning routine of exercise, karate, breakfast, and target practice out of the way, JJ heads to his office. It's a high-tech room which could be a set piece from the latest Bond movie, Diamonds Are Forever. And rightly so. This is, after all, the hub of the investigators. J.J. Arms' multinational global private investigator agency, and the man in charge is settling in for another action-packed day. As with most of his cases, the one he's about to begin starts with a phone call. Not just any call, either. The operator tells him it's an international one from Paris, France. But the worried-sounding voice on the other end of the line is familiar because it belongs to the iconic Hollywood actor, Mr. Marlon Brando. "Jay," he says, urgent and straight to the point, "my son has been kidnapped. I want you to find him." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the wild journey we're about to go on. I'm Mark Dodson, and welcome to Detectives Don't Sleep. Each week, we'll shadow the world's most remarkable sleuths, real detectives who worked extraordinary cases. This week, we're following a man who is, without a doubt, America's most recognizable private eye, J.J. Arms. He's hunted down murderers, kidnappers, robbers, and cheats, worked for millionaires, celebrities, and paupers alike. He's survived at least 16 assassination attempts and been shot at more times than he can remember. By the time he's done with the case of Marlon Brando's missing kid, J.J. Arms will have his name in headlines all around the world. He'll almost die in a helicopter near miss, and he'll have helped the Hollywood legend into 10-year custody battle. From Noiser, this is the Ballad of J.J. Arms, and this is Detectives Don't Sleep. It's March 1972, and we're in J.J. Arms' office in El Paso. What a place this is. Even before arriving in the office, visitors have the choice between a leather-lined elevator or a spiral staircase with zebra-skin treads to make their way up. Either way, the first thing every guest sees when they get there is a life-size waxwork mannequin of J.J. Arms sitting on the sofa, magazine in hand. It's a playful object with a serious motive. It distracts anyone coming to kill J.J., buying him time to react. The man himself sits behind a 15-foot curved desk, raised up on a platform at the far end of the room. In front of him, a panel full of buttons control everything in the office, from the lights to the doors. One button rotates a paneled wall to become a bar. Another flips a bookcase to reveal an arsenal of automatic weapons, and night vision goggles, and trackers, transmitters, and bugs. No expenses spared up here. The international phone call from Marlon Brando is still underway, and JJ can hear the concern in the actor's voice. He knows Brando from a movie they shot together back in California. But did I mention J.J. Arms acts too? No? Well, he does. In fact, before the next year is out, he'll have played the villain, Hookman, in hit crime series Hawaii Five-0. That's a different story for another time. Anyway, Brando and Arms met when J.J. was playing a tiny role in one of Brando's early films. That was before either man was the success story they are now. But a connection was made. They understand each other well enough for Brando to cut right to the chase. His 13-year-old son, Christian, has been kidnapped, and the cops have gotten nowhere trying to find him. He needs JJ to locate the boy and bring him home safe. JJ tells Brando he's just heard the news himself on the TV. Only they didn't mention kidnap. They just said he'd disappeared. Then he asks the first and most important question in any kidnap case. Has there been a ransom demand? Brando tells him there hasn't, but he's afraid it might not be about ransom anyway. You see, the much-awaited gangster epic, The Godfather, is about to hit the screens, in which Brando plays the lead role of Don Vito Corleone. Brando's worried that he might have unwittingly offended the mafia with his portrayal of the aging gangster. What if Christian's been taken as some kind of reprisal? Well, this is not Jay's first kidnapping case. In fact, there's something of a specialty of his. He reassures Brando that it's highly unlikely that any self-respecting gangsters would kidnap an actor's kid in revenge for playing a scripted role. If he's offended anyone with his Corleone, they'll be coming for him direct. And JJ should know. The mafia once tried to throw him from a boat with a lump of concrete tied around his neck. But that, too, is another story. All right, now having ruled out the mafia connection, he asks Brando to tell him everything he can about the days before Christian's disappearance. There's not much to tell. The boy's been attending a private school down in Ojai, California, but his mother took him out of school late in February because he'd been suffering with a bad case of tonsillitis. School hasn't seen him since. Now, this rings alarm bells with JJ. He, like the rest of the world, is only too aware of the bitter custody battle Brando and his ex-wife Anna Kashfa have been fighting for the past decade. He tells the actor to contact his attorneys and have them put together a dossier of anything about her that might help. Why? Well, because JJ is already sure that Anna Kashfa knows more than she's letting on. Apparently, it was Kashfa who first reported Christian missing, and JJ wonders whether she may be more directly involved. All the actor will say is that, with her, anything is possible. Brando agrees to get his lawyers to send a file over to JJ's office. He says he's stuck in France, filming Last Tango in Paris with Bernardo Bertolucci. He'll fly to LA as soon as he can and catch up with JJ there. Meanwhile, I want you to get started, he says. But JJ Arms already started work the moment the call began. Every single question he's asked the actor is a practiced part of his strategy when faced with a kidnap case. What's Christian's normal routine? Who's been around him? Who knows what his plans and movements are? Every tiny detail of the victim's life must be analyzed. After all, the only thing JJ knows for certain is that the boy is not where he's supposed to be. Without a ransom demand, is it even kidnap? Whether he's been taken or he's run away, where is he now? Well, it's probably wise to start where he was last seen, with his mother. Moving fast is another of JJ's specialties. He doesn't like to hang around, as you may have guessed. So he wastes no time getting to LA and starting surveillance on Anna Kashfa. Now, according to Marlon Brando, Anna has told the cops she's got no idea where Christian might be. Jay smells a rat, and he's pretty good at spotting a liar. That's another skill of his, honed over years of practice. And boy, has he had some practice. Like the time when two would-be assassins tried to attack him in his own driveway. It followed his Cadillac Seville through the huge iron gate and opened fire on his car, blasting the windows out and piercing the bodywork with shots. The attempt failed. JJ wasn't about to let the matter drop. The next day, he tracked the gunman down, handed him the slugs he plucked out of his car door, and said, "You left these at my place last night." Of course, the driver denied all knowledge. When pressed, he even offered to take a lie detector test to prove it. Well, JJ liked the sound of that. Taking the guy back to his ranch, JJ warned him that this test was pretty unique. It sensed the adrenaline leaking from your pores when you lied. Guy remained unfazed. He just wanted to get done with it. Well, that was a decision he soon regretted when JJ let a 600-pound Siberian tiger called Gemini into the room on a chain. Imagine that. A live tiger, paws like dinner plates and claws like knife blades, slowly padding towards a guy who, by then, was sure as hell secreting some adrenaline. Unsurprisingly, the gunman confessed all in seconds. I mean, who uses a tiger as a lie detector? Anyway, I digress. At least there's no need for tigers out here in California, where JJ and his officers are watching Anna Kashfa. Even without Gemini, he's already sure she's lying about her son's disappearance. He just has to prove it. As well as watching her movements, he busies himself interviewing neighbors, friends, and acquaintances of Kashfa's, trying to get a break. Have any strangers visited her? Have any of them seen Christian recently? Any new cars been hanging around? Has the regular mailman changed? It's amazing, really, the kind of detail friends and neighbors are willing to share. In less than a day of interviewing and observing, JJ has built up a pretty clear picture of the ex-Mrs. Brando. It's not looking good. Her house seems to be a hangout for all sorts of unsavory types. People come and go all hours. And according to the neighbors, fights often tumble out into the street. Police are regularly called. One line of inquiry reveals that Anna and a friend of hers are involved in some kind of venture called World Travel Academy, which is headquartered down in Mexicali, just south of the Mexican border. That feels like a good lead, because it was from the Mexican border that Anna Kashfa first reported Christian missing. The next tip comes from one of Kashfa's neighbors, a prim and proper widow who's been so disgusted by the shenanigans at the Kashfa home that she's taken to writing down everything she sees, hoping it'll prove useful if anything bad happens. And now, this little list is gold because she's written down the registration number of every vehicle that's visited and when they were there. She's an investigator's dream of a neighbor, nosy and meticulous. She tells Jay that on March the 5th, 1972, just a few days before Christian was reported missing, she noticed a red Volkswagen camper bus outside the house, driven by some hippies. Apparently, it had a World Travel Academy logo on the side. Taking the registration number from her, JJ soon learns that it's registered to the Mexicali-based business, World Travel Academy. Now his senses really start tingling. He's still convinced that Anna Kashfa knows exactly where her son is, or at least who he's with. And it's just too suspicious that she reported him missing from the Mexican border, just days after her hippie friends and the Mexican-registered red Volkswagen visited her. It's time to find the camper bus. I've already told you, J.J. Arms' private eye agency, The Investigators, has branches all over the world. He has hundreds, if not thousands of operatives working for him. He quickly dispatches an agent to each of the 3 ports of entry in Mexico, Tijuana, Tecate, and Mexicali. He tells him to check the records of all vehicles crossing the border after March 5th against the nosy neighbors list, looking in particular for that red Volkswagen bus. While he's waiting for the reports, JJ makes arrangements to charter a Hughes 500 helicopter. And of course, he's going to be flying her himself. He's no stranger to piloting choppers either. Did you know he once used a helicopter to rescue an American client from a Mexican prison? Well, he did. In fact, that particular caper allegedly inspired the Charles Bronson movie Breakout. But again, that's another story. This helicopter JJ has chartered can carry 5 passengers in comfort. It's a beast. The thing will cruise at 140 miles per hour with a range of well over 400 miles at 5,000 feet. So it's perfect for covering a lot of ground fast, which is exactly what JJ needs for this case. With the helicopter secured, JJ gets a call from his agent down at the border near Mexicali. He's right. The red Volkswagen bus passed through the border there on Monday. But that's 4 whole days ago. It could be anywhere by now. Fortunately, Jay knows a few things about crossing into Mexico. 1, you have to give a destination address to get an entry permit. And 2, you need to say how long you're staying. On top of that, the borders in Mexico hold on to the title documents for your vehicle, meaning that you have to leave via the same port you entered if you want your papers back. A few more questions to the Border Patrol confirms the entry permit for the red Volkswagen was made in the name of James Barry Wooster, who said his destination was the Mexican peninsular state of Baja California. According to the records, he hasn't left Mexico again. JJ thinks the names and the destination are likely to be made up, but at least the vehicle is still in the country. And that's the lead. So JJ calls the airport in San Diego, tells him to put the Hughes 500 helicopter on standby, and boards a plane from LA to go and collect it. Arriving at the border post, JJ meets up with his agent, who has 5 Mexican federal police standing by with a promise to help. Of course, they'll have to pay him up front, but that's not unusual. The federales, as they're locally known, have been briefed with everything JJ and his team have discovered and have promised to help search the towns and villages along the coast. Despite their bonus paycheck, the federales are unimpressed to learn that JJ intends to go all the way down to the tip of the Mexican peninsula of Baja California if need be. Baja California is a 600-mile sliver of inhospitable land. It's a long stretch of unpaved roads, mountain passes, forests, rocky coastline, tiny fishing villages, and expanses of arid desert. Not easy search and rescue territory. JJ assures him he'll travel all the way around the 2,000-odd miles of coastline, but that's what it takes to find the boy. Grudgingly, the federales agree. JJ smiles, a boyish grin, which lights up his dark eyes. It's time to get the show on the road. To the chopper. And that's where he hits his next hurdle. One by one, the nervous-looking federales explain why they can't possibly travel in a helicopter. For the first officer, it's his terrible air sickness. Can't even go up an elevator. The second officer has 9 children. He's worried about making orphans of them. The excuses from the other 3 are just as creative. JJ knows exactly what's going on. None of them can take their eyes off the 2 gleaming hooks on the end of his arms. Can't really blame their hesitation. I mean, would you go up in a chopper piloted by a man with no hands? The thing is, those hooks are more dexterous, more sensitive, and more useful than any regular hands. Over the years, he's had multiple adaptations and attachments developed. Guy's more versatile than a Swiss Army knife. These nervous federales can't possibly know that each hook can exert up to 38 pounds of crushing pressure, more than 3 times that of a human hand, or that he can punch through plate glass, lift metal from open flame, and break through a wood-paneled door with a single punch. But these same hooks, they can be just as delicate as they are lethal. He can pick up a cupcake without crushing it. He can paint, play tennis, and of course, fly a helicopter. These hooks, you see, are not substitute hands. They're his tools and his weapons. Imagine being able to grab the blade in a knife fight and crush it with your bare hands. JJ can do that. In fact, think of anything that could burn, slash, crush, or shatter an average human hand, and JJ Arms is pretty much immune to them all. So the 5 hesitant federales can't possibly realize just how good a pilot JJ is. And no matter what bribes or persuasions he offers, they're not willing to find out. Finally, they agree to follow him on land in a Jeep. They'll check in with each other several times a day, and if either party finds anything, they'll hurry to meet up. It's not the best solution, but it's the only one the federales are going to accept. With last preparations made and water and supplies on board, JJ takes to the skies. He's got a young boy to find, and the clock is already ticking. Now, by this point, you've probably already figured out that JJ Arms is no stranger to jeopardy. But he doesn't make a habit of putting himself at risk for no reason. He's sampled the best and worst of Mexican food many times before. He's not about to let Montezuma's revenge slow him down. So the only thing he plans to consume is the supply of water he's brought with him. That and some sugar-free gum. Beginning his first sweep, JJ is filled with optimism. He's never accepted a case he hasn't solved. He doesn't plan on this being the first. The landscape below quickly becomes a blur of dry scrubland, dotted with towns and villages. Fishing hamlets skim past, and dirt roads weave through the hills like a network of dusty veins. Surely, the red Volkswagen will stand out a mile here. But the first sweep comes up blank. The second and third, the same. He lands only to refuel or to fire questions at the rural fishermen, angry at the huge thrumming chopper disturbing their catch. As night falls the first day, he puts the helicopter down and calls the federales for an update. Sadly, they too have had no luck. They've been stopping in every village on their way down country, asking questions. So far, no one's had anything to share. The next 2 days follow the same pattern. As soon as dawn breaks, the whirlybird is up in the air and search begins again. All the while, JJ's aware that his target could be on the move too. They may well be back in a village he's already checked. By the third day, he's feeling the strain. He's been wearing the same jeans and shirt since he started the mission. He's filthy with dust and sweat. His chin is grizzled with a covering of stubble. His eyes feel raw and gritty. He's tired, he's hungry, and his frustration is mounting. And that's when things start to get a bit strange. Maybe the lack of decent food or a proper night's sleep has begun to affect him. The ever-changing landscape begins to look worryingly familiar. He starts to question himself. Has he passed over that village before? Is he lost? Is he retracing his steps unnecessarily? All of a sudden, everywhere he looks, he sees that red bus. Like a dying man stumbling through the desert, seeing only sparkling water holes. Now, every bush or rock looks like the vehicle he's searching for. And yet, when he lands to check, it's nothing more than a mirage. As night falls on the third day, JJ is growing despondent. It'd be easy to give up and go home, but JJ Arms is no quitter. That bus is out here somewhere, and he's gonna find it. Bit of shut-eye, he'll be back on the job. The next morning, he starts before dawn, a renewed determination firing him on. Conditions have changed, though, and now there's a mist hanging over the sea, rolling towards the land. This means that he has to keep the chopper low as he hugs the coastline. He's flying close to the water, just above stalling speed. His eyes scan back and forth, searching for that elusive bus. It's tiring, relentless, and repetitive. Suddenly, a huge rock column looms out of the mist, filling the windscreen right in front of him. He's about to crash. Instinct kicks in, and Jay hits pretty much every button on the dashboard, pulling the bird into a vertical climb, engine screaming and rotor blades shuddering. With just inches to spare, using all 317 horses in her tank, the helicopter clears the outcrop with her pilot drenched in sweat, still half expecting a fatal impact. JJ levels her out again and lets out a breath. Thank God those federales refused to fly with him. Had the chopper been fully laden, they would have never made it. Adrenaline still surging, JJ heads back to the coastline, hovering while he checks his location. He's already traveled about 200 miles from his start point this morning, so he's got 50 more miles before he has to either turn back or find somewhere else to land and refuel. As he hovers, making his decision, he spots them. Brightly colored tents, right in the shadow of that stone pillar that nearly killed him. His sharp investigator's instincts, honed over many cases, kicks in immediately. Those tents need a closer look. Pulling the helicopter in a wide arc, he assesses the bay. Caves line the rock face, and on the sloping beach below is a cluster of bright red and orange tents. Camping gear is strewn haphazardly around the beach, though there's no sign of any of the campers. As he banks towards the land, something glints in the sun. It's the chrome bumper of a red Volkswagen bus, half tucked away under brush and trees. Now, not quite trusting his eyes, JJ makes another wide circle over the bay to double-check. It's no mirage this time. He's found what he's been looking for. He pulls away and lands about a mile from the bay. Grabbing his binoculars and making sure his weapons are loaded and ready, he sets off on foot. Looking down from the cliff edge, he scans the camp. Still no movement, but he's still able to confirm that the registration on the bus is the one he's been looking for. He trudges back to the chopper and calls the federales. Now all he can do is wait in the shade of the Hughes 500, sipping on his water. Can't move on the camp until the federales get here. 4 torturous hours later, the federales' jeep comes barreling along the dirt road, throwing up a great cloud of dust. So much for keeping a low profile. Having shown them the camp, JJ tells the officers to go down there and start making some arrests. Mexico is their territory, after all. Well, federales don't agree with his take. It's his case. He's in charge. He should be the one to go into camp. They'll be right behind him all the way. Sick of wasting time, JJ shrugs and heads down the sloping rock wall as fast as he can, his .38 drawn and ready. Reaching the first tent, JJ rips open the flap and yells, "All right, everybody out! Put your hands on your heads and come out here!" A man and a woman inside, mostly naked, looked up, bleary-eyed and confused. They're obviously still working off whatever they smoked or drank last night. Offering no resistance, they both stand, hands up, and follow JJ's instructions to brace themselves against the cliff. Meanwhile, he pulls the inhabitants of the second tent, equally naked, into the glaring sunlight. As they join their quivering campmates at the rocky wall, JJ opens the third tent to find a man lifting a scuba diving spear gun up to face him. JJ levels his .38 and calmly tells him, "Drop it or I'll drop you." The man does as he's told, and he's soon out on the beach with his friends. 8 of them in total, all lined up against the wall. They don't look up to a fight, but JJ isn't taking any chances, planning to get the federales to watch them while he looks for the boy. He turns to issue the instruction. He finds they're not there. In fact, they're still loitering nervously at the top of the cliff, which means they've left Jay down there alone with 8 full-grown, albeit naked, adults. Calls them down, and they reluctantly approach. JJ leaves him to guard the shivering hippies and heads off to search for young Christian Brando. Now there's one last tent closer to the water's edge. When Jay opens it, he finds a teenage boy in stained jeans trying to hide under his sleeping bag to avoid the terrifying man with hooks for hands waving a gun in his doorway. It's him, Christian Brando. He's terrified, but alive, and he needs a doctor. Having reassured the boy that he's there to help, JJ checks him over quickly. He's running a high temperature and has a racking cough. The tent floor around his bed is speckled with flecks of blood. Now, JJ's no doctor, but he knows pneumonia when he sees it. Can't waste any time getting the boy treated. He asks the federales to arrest the hippies and bring them back to the border. Once again, the men refuse his request. Turns out, despite them having living, physical proof of the kidnap, they can't arrest the hippies for it. The charge wasn't brought in Mexico, so it's not their problem. Now he's torn between wanting to see them brought to justice and needing to get Christian to a hospital. JJ realizes he's going to have to let this one slide. Hopefully, the American cops will be able to track him down later. Instead, he leaves the federales to make their way home in their Jeep, and he scoops Christian into the helicopter and powers away, homeward bound. He has Christian checked over in a hospital in San Diego and dosed up with penicillin. The doctor reluctantly releases the young boy into Jay's care on the promise that they'll fly straight to his father in LA and get him into a hospital there. Agreeing, JJ makes one further call before setting off to Brando's lawyers. They tell him the actor is actually with them right now and wants to speak to him. When Brando takes the phone, he still sounds as concerned as he had on the first day. He worriedly asks when he and JJ can meet, saying he has more information that might be useful. But Jay cuts him off. He tells him to relax. He's already on his way back to LA and he's got Christian with him. Well, Marlon Brando can't believe what he's hearing. JJ Arms has done it. He's found his boy and he's bringing him home safely. When JJ hands a tearful Christian back to his father, there are hugs, smiles, and handshakes all around, accompanied by the frantic snapping of the nation's press. It marks the end of yet another successful case for America's greatest private investigator, and one which cements his place in the PI Hall of Fame. The hippies were eventually rounded up, but claimed that Anna Kashfa had paid them $10,000 to hide their son for a while. She, however, said her friends from the World Travel Academy had offered to take her and Christian away on vacation in Mexico. At the last minute, she'd been unable to go and sent them on ahead with her son, saying she'd join them at the border. She says when she got there, they were nowhere to be seen, and she then reported her son missing. It's a bit strange then. She didn't think to share any of this information with the cops in the first place. JJ's inclined to believe the hippies' version. Either way, the kidnap charge doesn't hold up too much. Shame the cops didn't have a 600-pound Siberian tiger on hand to get the truth. When the case went to court, Marlon Brando finally won custody of his son. I would love to say that there was a Hollywood ending, and they all lived happily ever after. Sadly, Marlon Brando was right when he said they'd messed up the kid with all their fighting. In 1990, Christian Brando shot his sister's fiancé dead and ended up serving 5 years on a manslaughter charge. Perhaps his lungs never recovered from his kidnapping ordeal either, because he died of pneumonia in 2008. Aged just 49. And that wraps up this particular caper. Pretty wild case, huh? But it's all in a day's work for a detective like J.J. Arms. There are thousands of other cases which would wow you just as much. I could have told you about the jobs he did for Howard Hughes, King Faisal, or the Burtons. Or the time he went on an 8,000-mile manhunt all the way to Thailand to catch a murderer. But I think by now, you get the picture. Now in his early 90s, after 7 decades of relentless investigations, he's still not retired. He probably never will. He's downsized both his investigative activities and his El Paso home. But his personality remains larger than life. He'll always be one of the greatest, most prolific, and most successful private investigators of all time. J.J. Arms is an incredible man with an amazing history. You won't find a more vibrant, eccentric, or unique private eye. He really is one of a kind. Next time on Detectives Don't Sleep. It's the roaring 20s in America, the era of prohibition and gangsters. In other words, a busy time for any detective. In Lakehurst, New Jersey, 41-year-old Ivy Giberson is found tied up in her own home after 2 thieves broke in and killed her husband, William. The pipe-smoking master detective, Ellis Parker, is called in to lead the investigation. It doesn't take him long to figure out all is not as it seems. Was the dead man linked to bootleggers? Does he know his killer? And why does Ivy appear so unaffected by her husband's death? Maybe she's just not the crying sort. Or maybe she knows more than she's letting on. Find out in the next episode of Detectives Don't Sleep. It's just a little after midnight, February 23rd, 1861, in Cecil County, Maryland. Passenger train chuffs steadily through the rural landscape, white steam billowing into the cold night air. The flat farmland gives way to gently rolling hills, shrouded in darkness. Silent apart from the puffing of the engine and the screech of wheels on cold iron rails. This regular sleeper train is Baltimore bound. Its engine, cargo cars, and passenger carriages all appear perfectly standard. Inside, travelers do their best to catch a couple of hours of uncomfortable shut-eye. Again, all seemingly normal. But this train carries a dangerous secret, one which only 4 passengers aboard know anything about, and one which, if exposed, could change the course of history in the United States. Here, at the very back of the train, the rearmost sleeper carriage plays host to 2 middle-aged businessmen and a young woman traveling with her invalid brother, but none of them are who they seem to be. One of the businessmen, 300 pounds of muscle and grit, is a man called Ward Hill Lamont. That's not the name he's traveling under. Right now, concealed around his person are a brace of pistols, a loaded revolver, a bowie knife, and some brass knuckles. Lamont is ready for a fight. The other businessman has also lied about the name on his ticket. Unlike his companion, he's short, well-built, with a neat beard. His piercing eyes scan the carriage constantly, ever alert. He, you see, is actually Alan Pinkerton, America's most celebrated and respected private detective, and one of the keepers of the great secret aboard this train tonight. As for the young woman, well, she is young, still in her 20s, and she is a woman. That much is true, but she's no caring sister to an invalid brother. She is Kate Warren, America's first female private detective. And the unusually tall, long-legged, wiry man she's carefully concealed behind the curtain of his sleeper berth is not her brother. He is none other than Abraham Lincoln, President-elect of the United States. Right now, he's just 9 days off his inauguration in Washington. And if Lamont, Pinkerton, and Warren fail in their mission tonight, there's every chance that he won't live to see that day. You see, Pinkerton and Warren, these eminent super sleuths, have uncovered a secret plot to assassinate the president-elect before he even takes office. Little do they know, but on this dark February night, on this ordinary sleeper train, it's more than just the life of a future president that's at stake. In these volatile times, with the threat of civil war looming large, the entire future of the Union hangs in the balance. The plot to assassinate Abraham Lincoln is set to happen in a matter of hours. And only these three extraordinary traveling companions are in a position to save him. My name is Mark Dotson, and welcome to Detectives Don't Sleep. Each week, we'll shadow the world's most remarkable sleuths, real detectives who work extraordinary cases. This week, we're following 3 detectives from the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, America's most famous and influential organization of private detectives. This trio put themselves in the line of fire to save the life of the incoming President of the United States, Mr. Abraham Lincoln. It's a case that'll see them use every trick in the book to infiltrate secret organizations, uncover dangerous and violent militiamen, and get to the heart of the plot that threatens to unsettle the course of U.S. history for good. From Noiser, this is the story of the Baltimore Plot, and this is Detectives Don't Sleep. Now, you may be wondering how these 3 special travelers ended up smuggling the future president on a normal passenger train in the dead of night. Well, it's kind of a long story, and one which begins almost a month earlier, over in Chicago, Illinois. It all started on January 19th. 1861. Alan Pinkerton, founder of the detective agency that bears his name, is in his office in Chicago, writing up his daily report, when a letter arrives. Opening it, his heart drops. The message is from a man called Samuel M. Felton. He's the president of the Philadelphia, Wilmington, and Baltimore Railroad, and he's heard a terrible rumor of a plot to attack his company's large paddle steamer. Since this is how they transport their trains across the Susquehanna River, any attack on that boat would have a devastating blow on his ability to run the railroads. And apparently, there's also a plot to blow up the company's bridges between Havre de Grace and Baltimore. The railroad's been Felton's life work. He can't stand the thought of any of it being destroyed. Knowing he'll get no official help to thwart any such plot, Felton has turned to Pinkerton's renowned private agency. He wants the celebrated detective to find out who's behind the threat and make sure it gets stopped. Now, I bet you're wondering what all of this has to do with old Abraham Lincoln. Well, it's kind of complicated, so it's probably a good idea to take a moment to remind ourselves what was going on back then. In the late 1850s, angry rumblings from the southern states are commonplace. An aggressive element in the South is threatening dissolution of the Union. Plans to blow up Washington and seize the arsenal and Navy Yard have been mooted. Whispered rumors spread of plots to isolate the capital by tearing up the railroads, burning the bridges, and destroying telegraph wires. You name it, nothing is safe. All right, so basically, by the time we reach the presidential elections of 1860, the crack along the Mason-Dixon line is wider than the San Andreas Fault, and Abraham Lincoln becoming president is the last straw for many of his detractors in the South. He may have won the election, but many, especially in southern states, see Lincoln's election as a threat to their way of life. He hadn't won much favor in the South during the campaign, and he's a far cry from the Southern Democratic Party's John Cabell Breckinridge, who had swept 11 southern states in the election. Right now, as far as most of the South is concerned, Lincoln is not their president. Even from the moment his nomination as Republican candidate was confirmed, secret societies began springing up in Virginia, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. Now that he's won the election, those societies began to arm themselves, forming militia ready to strike with devastating force. An uprising from the South looks inevitable. Those once whispered plans to disrupt the inauguration and attack Washington, D.C., now become loud conversations on street corners. So when one such plan reaches the troubled ears of railroad boss Samuel Felton, he feels he has to act fast. And since the Pinkerton Agency has a good track record with railway security already, that's where he turns. Back in his Chicago office, Pinkerton reads Samuel Felton's letter with growing alarm. You see, a large part of Felton's railroad track is on Maryland soil, which is particularly troublesome. In the past few days, the states of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia have all joined South Carolina in seceding from the Union. Texas and Louisiana are right behind them. Pinkerton knows that Maryland is a hotbed of anti-Northern feeling, and Lincoln's election has only made that worse. With Maryland threatening to quit the Union too, and the outbreak of war looking imminent, Felton's railroad link would be essential for the Union forces fighting in the South. If it's damaged, it would be disastrous. Determined to do everything he can to prevent this, Pinkerton leaves Chicago within hours of receiving the letter. He's Baltimore bound, and he's taking some of his best agents with him, of which Kate Warren is most certainly one. Kate Warren took up her role in the detective agency one hot summer day back in 1856. When the 23-year-old widow from New York walked into the room, Pinkerton assumed she was asking for a secretarial role. How wrong he'd been. She was there for the advertised detective job, and her argument for why she should get it was compelling. As America's first female private eye, she proved everything she argued on that first day. She can get places no man can. Even now, no one expects this attractive young woman to be an undercover private eye. With a chameleon-like ability to blend into any part of society, she can change her accent, her clothes, her entire demeanor to suit. She's one of the canniest agents on Pinkerton's books, and she's going to be worth her weight in gold down in Baltimore. And she's not the only detective Pinkerton is taking to Baltimore with him. He's also chosen new recruit Harry Davies. Now, he may be fresh, but he's also proved that his unassuming personality and boyish good looks hide a razor-sharp mind. He's well-traveled, speaks several languages, and, just like Kate Warren, can adapt to any situation he finds himself in. And perhaps more importantly for this case, Davies has a deep understanding of the Southern way of life, having lived in New Orleans for several years. As they set off for Baltimore, little do the traveling detectives know that the threat to the railroad is only the tip of the iceberg. These Southern rebels intend to halt the presidential inauguration one way or another, and they will stop at nothing to achieve their goal. Arriving in Baltimore on January the 21st, the crack team from the Pinkerton agency gets straight to work. Experts in undercover operations, they'll all assume characters to help them uncover the town's secrets. Pinkerton himself will play newly arrived Southern stockbroker John H. Hutchinson. He's rented a suite of offices in a large building on South Street, cleverly chosen because it can be entered from all sides of the block, meaning this team can come and go from different doors without being seen together. Pinkerton's adopted character is a smart one, since it means he can integrate himself with local businessmen and infiltrate the upper echelons of Baltimore society. Someone among these lawyers, shipbuilders, and cotton traders might just be bankrolling whatever secret organizations are in operation down here. Alongside Pinkerton's stockbroker, Kate Warren will adopt the role of Mrs. Cherry, a Southern belle, recently arrived from Alabama. Her outfit is complete with a secessionist cockade, a ribbon rosé designed to show her allegiance to the cause. And her job is to befriend the womenfolk of Baltimore, expressing her own dissatisfaction with the states of the Union and weeding information from them about any subversive plans they may be privy to. And finally, young Harry Davies will become a New Orleans businessman, in town for work, but ready to play. His character, an extreme anti-union man, will donate generously to the interests and activities of the secessionists in Baltimore. And he'll be staying at the city's finest hotel, Barnum's. With his top detectives now in place, Pinkerton sets about uncovering the full scale of the threat. And what a threat it turns out to be. The three detectives begin mingling with the locals in bars, hotels, and restaurants, secretly returning to the agency's temporary headquarters to make their daily reports. They quickly learn that the feeling in Baltimore is increasingly hostile towards the president-elect, and anti-abolitionist sentiment is high. Kate Warren, decked out in her Alabaman finery, finds the women of the town to be just as bitter in their opposition to Mr. Lincoln's inauguration as their menfolk. She's already hearing whispers of husbands willing to kill the president-elect if that's what it takes to stop his inauguration. When details are announced of Lincoln's intended inauguration tour from Illinois to Washington, D.C., those whispers get louder. It's just been publicly revealed that Lincoln's traveling party will pass through Baltimore, the only slave-holding city on the planned route, apart from Washington itself. Given that Maryland is likely to secede before Lincoln's train even arrives at the border, the wisdom of passing through Baltimore at all is highly questionable. But that's the plan, and it's one that sparks even more concern from Pinkerton and his agents. Sure enough, as soon as the itinerary is published, Lincoln's passage through the city becomes the sole topic of conversation among Baltimore society. The detectives began hearing increasingly outrageous threats to attack Lincoln and his party. Now, with the full timetable of his journey from Illinois to Washington now public knowledge, anyone wishing to hurt Lincoln has the means to track his movements, right down to the minute. With Kate Warren already reporting a possible threat to attack Lincoln on his journey to Washington, young Harry Davies is now tasked with making friends with the men talking most loudly about their intentions. The bar at Barnum's proves to be the perfect spot for Davies to integrate himself with the locals. It's where visitors from all over the South come to drink and talk, filling the bar with long-haired, finely dressed antebellum aristocracy. And it's these men who are most vocal in their rejection of Lincoln as their future president. Now, one of the regulars at the bar at Barnum's Hotel, Otis Hillard, proves a useful acquaintance. This heavy-drinking, loose-lipped, boastful man proudly wears a gold badge stamped with a palmetto, the secessionist symbol of South Carolina. It doesn't take many shared drinks for Davies to befriend him, especially since Davies keeps pointedly commenting on his interest in a Southern rebellion. Hillard laps it up, sharing more and more with his new best friend. Davies learns that Hillard has recently joined an armed militia group called the Palmetto Guards, a secret society fiercely opposed to Lincoln's presidency. When Hillard tells him about their keen interest in the exact details of Lincoln's stopover in Baltimore, alarm bells start ringing loudly for Davies. Lincoln's special train has already left the station, beginning the well-publicized tour to Washington. Yet, at exactly the same time, the detectives are learning of a plot to stop him from reaching the capital at all. Davies' late-night drinking sessions with Hillard also reveal that he and his associates will be tracking Lincoln's train from stop to stop using secret-coded messages. They don't want anyone to know they're monitoring his every move on his way to Baltimore. Hillard suggests that these coded messages are only part of a much larger plot, but he stops short of telling Davies what that scheme is. Davies hurries his intel back to Pinkerton, the office. As it turns out, Pinkerton has also dug up some disturbing information. A businessman called Luckett occupies the offices across from the Pinkertons, and he's fallen for the charms of Pinkerton's alter ego, John H. Hutchison. Having learned of Luckett's secessionist leanings, Pinkerton lured the man into his confidence with the offer of a reasonable donation from his own pocket to help their cause. As he handed over the cash, though, he pulled Luckett in close. In a low voice, he warned him to be careful who he speaks to. "You never know," he said, "when Northern agents might be listening." His ruse worked. The donation, coupled with his warning, marked Pinkerton as a patriotic friend who could be trusted. Luckett told him that only a small band of men, a secret group sworn to silence, knew the full extent of the plans being laid. And he offered Pinkerton the chance to meet the lead man, a barber called Cipriano Ferrandini. Ferrandini's barbershop is run out of the basement of Barnum's Hotel and is a popular meeting place for the men of Baltimore. Luckett assures Pinkerton that every Southern rights man has confidence in Ferrandini. Then he leans in and whispers that Ferrandini would kill Lincoln sooner than see him pass through Baltimore. Naturally, Pinkerton snaps up the invite to meet the man himself. Stepping into the smoke-filled bar that evening, he's introduced to Ferrandini. The dark, wiry, Corsican immigrant turns out to be the staunchest supporter of Southern freedom a man could hope to meet. Having been reminded of his generous donation, Ferrandini takes to Pinkerton immediately. Sitting in a quiet corner of the bar, in a fugue of cigar smoke, with drinks flowing, Ferrandini openly shares his anti-Lincoln, anti-Northern views. He feels that those like him, who are outraged by Lincoln's election, should be allowed to resort to any means necessary to stop him taking his seat. "Never shall Lincoln be president," Ferrandini proclaims. "He must die, and die he shall." Despite the shocking threat he's just heard, Pinkerton struggles to dismiss the barber as just another crackpot. He's an eloquent, persuasive talker that even a long-in-the-tooth PI like Pinkerton finds hard to resist. No matter how the detective presses him, though, no specific details of their plot come forward. Leaving the bar with Ferrandini's hateful words echoing in his head, Pinkerton is now certain that the president-elect's life is genuinely in danger. They must get an urgent warning to Lincoln's people, but they're going to need details first. The president-elect has dismissed more than his fair share of death threats already. He's not likely to change his well-publicized schedule over a mere rumor. By the 19th of February, 1861, thanks to the undercover efforts of Kate Warren and Harry Davies, the team is beginning to piece together a rough outline of Ferrandini's plan. According to Lincoln's schedule, he will arrive in Baltimore at the Calvert Street Rail Depot, cross the city in an open carriage, and then continue his train journey to Washington from Camden Street Station. Baltimore's chief of police, himself a vocal secessionist, will only send a handful of officers to police the visit. While Lincoln is being transferred from the Calvert Street Depot, a disturbance will be created in the crowd. With everyone distracted, the assassin will take his shot and make his escape. It's a straightforward enough plan, highly likely to be effective, but it's one the detectives may yet be able to thwart. If only they knew who was going to be pulling that trigger. On the 20th of February, Davies gets another break thanks to his new friend Hillard. The belligerent drunk is so convinced of Davies' loyalty that he tells him if he swears an oath of allegiance, he can join Ferrandini's gang of Southern patriots. And just in time, too, because they're meeting tonight to draw the ballots that will decide who gets to kill Lincoln. The evening air is crisp, and Davies' breath clouds steamy as he strides alongside Hillard through the streets. They arrive at an ordinary house in an affluent area of the city, and Hillard raps twice on the door. The pair are ushered inside and led into a large drawing room where another 20 men are already awaiting. The room is deathly silent. Candles flicker, throwing an orange glow onto the drawn faces, making their somber expressions look almost ghoulish. Ferrandini, dressed from head to toe in black, greets the two newcomers with a curt nod of the head. Davies nods back, oozing respect. Without a word, the gathered rebels form a circle with Ferrandini and Davies at its center. Ferrandini tells Davies to raise his hand and swear his allegiance to the cause of Southern freedom. Davies does as he's told, to murmured approval from the circle. With his initiation over, the circle relaxes, and Ferrandini, still center stage, runs over the plan to distract the police at Calvert Street Station. Reaching the end of his speech, Ferrandini suddenly pulls a long, curved knife from inside his cloak and waves it above his head. "Gentlemen," he hollers above the growing roar of approval, "Lincoln shall never, never be president." Cheers and whoops erupt. When calm is restored, they come to the matter of deciding who would, in Ferrandini's words, "liberate the nation from the foul presence of the abolitionist leader." And then Ferrandini explains that the wooden chest on the table contains paper ballots for each man. One has been marked in red. That is the assassin's ballot. They will dim the lights so that no one can see each other's ballots. Everyone must keep their results secret. For their own safety, the identity of the honored patriot should stay hidden until the moment of his destiny. One by one, the men reach into the chest and choose their slips. Ferrandini goes last. And so, the deed is done. The choice has been made. Davies had been hoping he'd pull a red ballot, instantly diffusing the threat. No such luck. His ballot is blank, and he has no idea who the shooter will be. With their business concluded, Hillard and Davies head for the bar at Barnum's. Davies wastes no time expressing his deep disappointment at his blank ballot. He claims to be worried that whoever pulled the marked ballot may lose his nerve and their chance will be lost. With a stiff drink in hand, Hillard reassures him that Ferrandini has got that covered. Leaning in, he confides that there were actually 8 marked ballots in the box. Even if 1 or 2 men chicken out, there's still many more who will take the shot. As soon as he can extricate himself, Davies heads for Pinkerton's office, finding his boss and Kate Warren already in discussion. He shares everything he's learned tonight. They're right about the plot and the way the gang plans to execute it. But instead of there being just 1 shooter, there'll be at least 8, all believing they're the lone gunman. Now they have as much proof as they're ever going to get. It's time to warn Lincoln. On the 21st of February, 1861, just 3 weeks after starting the case, Pinkerton finds himself on a train to Philadelphia. By now, Lincoln's inauguration tour has just passed through New York City. His train is also on its way to the Pennsylvanian capital, and Pinkerton has made plans to meet with Lincoln and his party there. He and his team spent the rest of the previous evening coming up with a plan to protect the president-elect. Heading off alone, he's left Kate Warren and Harry Davies on the ground in Baltimore, listening out for any deviations from Ferrandini's plot. As Pinkerton's train steams through the rural flatlands, he runs through their rescue plan once more. He's going to have to convince Lincoln to abandon the rest of the tour, skip the Baltimore stop altogether, and go straight to Washington. It may sound simple enough, but it's not without risk. The problem is, even if he can persuade Lincoln to abandon the tour and depart for Washington early, the only route available to him would still pass through Baltimore. The president-elect would have to swap stations in the southern city, leaving him exposed and incredibly vulnerable. The best chance of getting Lincoln through Baltimore safely is if Pinkerton can persuade him to take the 11 o'clock train from Philadelphia that very evening. That way, they can get him in and out of the city before the rebels even realize his plan has changed. At 10:15, just 45 minutes until that train departs, Pinkerton finally gets his chance to meet with the future president. At the luxurious Continental Hotel in Philadelphia, Lincoln steps into the room of one of his most trusted advisors to find Pinkerton waiting for him. 2 men know each other. Both worked the railway at the same time, Lincoln as a lawyer and Pinkerton overseeing security. This past association works to Pinkerton's advantage. Lincoln already admires him and trusts his judgment. But when Pinkerton tells him of the plot they've uncovered, Lincoln remains unmoved. Given that he's just been told there's a group of men waiting to murder him, he stays surprisingly calm. Instead of panic, he's saddened that the Southern sympathizers now feel that killing him is the only way to further their cause. Having listened to Pinkerton's proposed escape plan, Lincoln stands from his chair. "I cannot go tonight," he says, matter-of-factly and unchangeable. Pinkerton is dumbfounded. He's just told the guy of a certain plot to kill him, and yet he's refusing to change his plans. Lincoln explains that he has promised to raise the flag over the Independence Hall in Philadelphia in the morning, and in the afternoon, he is committed to visit the legislature in Harrisburg. He can't and won't cancel either of those appointments at this late stage. Pinkerton tries to protest, but Lincoln remains firm. But beyond that, he says, I have no engagements. He tells the detectives that if he can come up with a new plan that will allow him to fulfill those two obligations, then he'll agree to it. Pinkerton has no choice. If he's going to save Lincoln's life, he's got a matter of hours to come up with a new plan to get him through Baltimore unscathed. At around 5:45 p.m. on the 22nd of February, 1861, Abraham Lincoln feels a tap on his shoulder. It's the signal he's been waiting for. He's dressed for dinner and has been enjoying the reception laid out for him in Harrisburg by Governor Andrew Curtin. But now, it's time to act. With a sigh, Lincoln excuses himself from the table and leaves the room. On his way out, he takes Governor Curtin by the arm, and the two men slip into the corridor. Curtin is a staunch ally of Lincoln's and is aware of the threat against his friend. To anyone looking on, it would seem that the two men had gone to speak in private, but Lincoln won't be coming back. He quickly throws on an old overcoat and shoves a soft felt hat into his pocket. Thanking Curtin for his support, he heads out the rear entrance bareheaded and hops into a waiting carriage alongside his closest friend and now bodyguard, Ward Hill Lamont. Heading to the station in Harrisburg, the two men board a private train and begin the return trip to Philadelphia. So far, so good. The first part of Alan Pinkerton's plan has gone smoothly, but Lincoln will have to travel over 200 miles tonight, mostly under cover of darkness. And this is the only part of the journey that can be made on private trains. Too many unscheduled special services would draw attention. To remain anonymous, Lincoln must use normal passenger trains, which means the stakes will get exponentially higher with each stop. I mean, come on. Abraham Lincoln is hardly an easy figure to conceal. Standing at about 6'4", his height alone makes him pretty recognizable. There weren't many guys as tall as him at that time. They're going to need some clever subterfuge to sneak him under the radar. Fortunately, Pinkerton's agents, especially the inimitable Kate Warren, are well versed in the art of cloak and dagger. Over at the station in Philadelphia, the crew of the 11 p.m. passenger train to Baltimore have received some special instructions. Apparently, there's an important package on its way over, and under no circumstances should the train leave the station without it. Departure's still a few hours away, but the conductor has been told to hold the train at the station until the package is safely aboard. The package is a ruse, though. The real reason they need to hold the train is that Pinkerton has a slight scheduling issue. Now, Lincoln's private train from Harrisburg might not make it to Philadelphia in time for the 11 p.m. to Baltimore. Crew have no idea they're actually delaying departure to save the future President of the United States. If all goes to plan, Lincoln will be smuggled aboard in Philadelphia and arrive in Baltimore in the dead of night, well ahead of the published schedule. To get this next stage right, Pinkerton is relying on Kate Warren to provide the cover. Now in Philadelphia, too, Kate Warren has begun her part. She's managed to reserve 4 sleeping berths on the rearmost carriage of the train. No easy feat, since it's a busy service and normally berths are taken on a first-come, first-served basis. But Kate had used her charms and a little folding money to encourage the guard to hold them for her. Having examined the train, she's worried that some passengers might recognize Lincoln as he walks to their carriage. She explains to the conductor that she'll be traveling with her invalid brother, who won't want to be carried through the narrow corridor. The request seems reasonable enough, and the conductor entrusts her with a key to the rear door so her brother can board easily. The same conductor is now standing by the nominated berths, fending off any other passenger. At 10 p.m., the private train from Harrisburg pulls into Philadelphia Railroad's West Depot. The drivers have kept the furnace raging, and the train has sped through the night, arriving at the station well over an hour ahead of schedule, which presents Pinkerton with another problem. The passenger train won't leave until 11, and he can't have Lincoln hanging around at either station. Neither can he be on the streets for risk of being recognized. Thinking on his feet, the detective leads Lincoln and his bodyguard, Lamont, to a waiting carriage, and then proceeds to give the poor driver a series of random directions, leading them in concentric circles around the city. As it draws closer to 11, he finally instructs the frustrated driver to take them to the train depot across town. As last-minute passengers hurry to join the 11 p.m. Baltimore service, Pinkerton, Lamont, and Lincoln now hurry unnoticed along the platform, staying close to the wall to hide in the shadows. Lincoln has pulled the soft-brimmed felt hat low over his eyes, covered his chin with a shawl, and pulled his old overcoat around him. Stooping double to disguise his height, he lets Lamont lead him toward the waiting train. The three men are met by Kate Warren, who, playing her role to perfection, embraces her poor invalid brother warmly. If that brother, the president-elect, is surprised to find that one of his protectors on this dangerous mission is a woman, he doesn't show it. He returns her embrace and follows her to the carriage. The small party boards at the rear of the train and into their waiting bunks. Kate draws the curtains around Lincoln's berth, and with his long legs bent up to allow him to fit in the small bed, he's secured for the journey. At the same time, the special package arrives at the station and is handed to the conductor. Although it's marked urgent and top secret, it actually contains a bunch of useless papers Pinkerton has gathered to give it some weight. Parcel has done its job. It's time to get the journey underway. Only a few minutes after 11, too. As the train gathers steam, whistling its way out of the station, Kate Warren can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Their work is far from done, but with Lincoln safely tucked up behind his curtain, they have the duration of the journey, around 4.5 hours, to relax before the next challenge. Arriving in Baltimore, the next challenge is quite unique. At 3:30 in the morning, the so-called Nightline train pulls into Baltimore's President's Street as planned. But because of a quirk in the city's regulations, no steam trains can travel through the city at night. So, the sleeper carriage is now uncoupled from the engine, with its passengers all still aboard, and then drawn by horses through the streets of Baltimore toward Camden Street Station, just over a mile away. Can you imagine what Ferrandini and his associates would think if they knew that the target of their awful plot was currently passing through their beloved city right under their noses? Incredible. Kate Warren now takes her leave. Her job is done, and she no longer needs to pretend to be Lincoln's sister. Pinkerton and Lamont will continue to protect the president-elect on the final stage of the journey. As the carriage arrives on Camden Street, Pinkerton learns of another possible hitch to his plan. The Washington train is delayed. Even the slightest delay is agonizing for the anxious detective. Dawn is approaching, And with every extra moment spent waiting, the risk of Lincoln being recognized grows. If he's discovered here, trapped in the station and cut off from any reinforcements, he'd only have Lamont and Pinkerton to protect him. And even though Lamont is heavily armed, they won't be a match for the militia group they're trying to outsmart. Just as he's weighing his limited options, Pinkerton hears the familiar sound of rail workers arriving on the platform to couple the sleeper carriage to the Washington train for the final leg of their perilous journey. With every mile they travel and every chuff of the steam engine, Pinkerton's anxiety reduces. Washington is now only 38 miles away. They might just make it. It's 6 in the morning on February the 23rd, 1861. And the Baltimore train is just pulling into the station in Washington. The three weary travelers step off the train. It's been a long, stressful night, but Pinkerton can finally breathe a sigh of relief. They've done it. Lincoln has arrived safely in Washington, just as Pinkerton promised he would. Meanwhile, over in Baltimore, Davies accompanies Hillard to the appointed spot of the intended assassination. As they arrive, though, rumors are already swirling that Lincoln is in Washington. How the hell? Hillard swears, but Davies knows exactly how, and it's a secret he's not about to share. It doesn't matter anyway. The Southern rebels have been thwarted in their best chance to execute the president before he even took office, and they are livid. The history books, though, remind us that ultimately they got their way. No one knows whether the fiercely secessionist young actor John Wilkes Booth, a regular drinker at Barnum's Hotel Bar, ever crossed paths with Ferrandini there. What we do know, though, is that he was the one who finally took what the Southern rebels wanted: Lincoln's life. Abraham Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. on the 14th of April, 1865, by John Wilkes Booth. His loyal bodyguard, Lamont, was not with him. Though his life was cut tragically short, it could have ended so differently had Pinkerton, Davies, and Kate Warren not risked their own lives to save his back in 1861. And had they not succeeded in uncovering and ultimately foiling the Baltimore Plot, the course of history in America would have looked very different indeed. The work in Baltimore successfully completed, Pinkerton, Davies, and Kate Warren returned to Chicago and moved on to their next assignments. They had no choice. The motto of the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, after all, was, "We never sleep." Next time on Detectives Don't Sleep, we're in Los Angeles in 1910. An explosion rips through the night, tearing the LA Times building apart. Bombs have been detonating across the United States of America for years now, as a war between unions and non-unions rages. This explosion is the latest in that devastating conflict. 20 people die in the LA Times blast, and many more are injured. Famed private detective William J. Burns is hired to find the culprits. He's a man the New York Times once called the only detective of genius whom the country has produced, and he's going to need all of that wit and talent now. This investigation will take him across the United States, following shady characters with murder on their minds. Will Burns find the bombers before they strike again? Or will this be the case that finally gets the better of this celebrated private investigator? Join us next time on Detectives Don't Sleep for the crime of the century.